Oh man, I'm tempted to throw. You know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and throw the top comment badge at Steve Rosemeyer already. Whew. And I've already decided that I need to go into the top comment badge and lower the noise of that thing. I think it was too loud. But Steve gets that one already because we weren't even talking yet, and Steve Rodemeyer drops 48 shot over the weekend, save lives, ban Chicago.
That's excellent. Now wait a minute. We can't celebrate this. We can't laugh, can't mock, can't make jokes.
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about this morning, is Steven Crowder being banned for making jokes. Not even making jokes. So, Cameron, I'm going to ask you to take it away with this one. I've read the articles, but I have not gotten around to listening to the podcast. Largely, for the purposes of doing this show, we're talking about a 1.5 hour podcast in which maybe 5 or 10 minute segment was the offending material that got him his second hard strike with YouTube, which is a big deal. And by the by, guys, Cameron, so you heard the segment. Can you go ahead and talk about it a little bit? And while you're doing that, I'm going to go take a peek at Facebook because we've got a little hiccup in the technology this morning. Apparently, we are not live on Facebook like we usually are.
So segment in question a few days ago, well, I guess more than a week ago now, they were talking about the Ma'Khia Bryant situation, and they were treating it with their usual amount of irreverence and cheekiness. But they were making the point that, this is a clean shoot, that this is literally, what choice did the police officer have? The entire video, if you watch it from the moment he gets out of the patrol car to the moment the Ma'Khia is shot, it's like, 45 seconds, 60 seconds? I don't remember the exact length.
Something like that.
But it's extremely short, and they're pointing out that in this situation, like, the cop had no time to think, nothing. He could only react, and he had the correct reaction, that this is a clean shoot. And Crowder and Gerald A. both went out of their way to make the point that, yes, it is sad that a 16-year-old girl has been shot. They did point that out, but they also made it a point to refuse to back off of the fact that, hey, look, this is a clean shoot. This is exactly what the officer should have done. And in particular, every time Crowder would say something and say, oh, what do we call this? We call this good shooting. And he would say it in his kind of sarcastic tone of voice, and he's obviously subverting expectations, and he's going for some real dark humor there. Now, of course, what YouTube is accusing him of is celebrating Ma'Khia's death. And just like that whole very fine people on both sides, or Mexicans or rapists and gang members, again, if you go back and you listen to the entire segment in context, you realize, no, that's not what happened at all. You're being bullshit. But that didn't stop them from whacking Crowder. So, on YouTube, for those that don't know, 3 strikes and you're out. And this is Crowder's second hard strike. And it's amazing to me. He's at 5.45 million subs. I would argue, with the passing of Rush Limbaugh, he is the conservative entertainer that dominates now. And for deliberately, and I'm going to say it this way, for deliberately misinterpreting a segment and the jokes surrounding the segment, he's now been pulled off of YouTube for 2 weeks. And as you and I were discussing before the show, I don't think this is just about the facts of the matter. It's also about the emotional context of the matter. because the only way you can really manipulate a person is through emotion. You can persuade people, you can coerce people, you can use force, logic, bribery, whatever, okay? But the only way you can manipulate somebody is by getting them in the feelings, right? And every single time we talk about one of these Dindu situations, there's always this deep emotional component. Oh, it's so sad that this 16-year-old girl's life was cut short. Oh, it's so sad that George Floyd died with somebody's knee on his neck. And it's so sad that Trayvon Martin died going and buying a bag of Skittles for his little brother and whatever. And so they manipulate you. They make you feel a certain kind of way. They make you feel sad. And while you're in that emotionally compromised state, you can be persuaded more easily to this narrative about, all the systemic oppression and how, cops hate black people and it's open season and walking while black is the most dangerous thing in America and all that other absolute bullshit.
Yep. So
what?
Hey,
hold on.
Go ahead.
So what Crowder was doing was he was rejecting that emotional framing. He went ahead and even paid the lip service and said, it's sad that this girl died. But instead of going through all of the public lamentations and performing the theater of being so sad that this girl died, he rejected that emotional framing. So it's not just the facts that he argued with, but the fact that he refused to be persuaded by that emotion is part of why they whacked him here, I think, because he set an example that the rest of us also don't need to be made to feel guilty over something that is absolutely in no way our damn fault. And they can't have that. That's terrifying, because then they can't manipulate us anymore.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up the Dindu narrative. Let's be very clear about something. There's this narrative out there, like you said, walking while black, all this stuff. Friday we talked about the repeal of the house arrest law, and I don't want to relitigate that conversation here, but we were talking about that because one of the reason that came into conversation is because of the situation with Ahmaud Arbery. And even in the article, even in the Fox News article, it said that he was gunned down while jogging, and that's a lie. Here's the thing about we keep repeating this on this show. We've got a playlist to this effect. All your martyrs are monsters. It's not just the case that every time one of these occurrences happens, that it turns out that the victim, scare quotes, victim in question, turns out to have been in the middle of committing a crime and has a lengthy criminal record. Right, you look at the George Floyd situation. Floyd was resisting arrest, assaulted officers, was high, was just high out of his mind on drugs, was being arrested for committing a counterfeiting crime in the middle of committing a crime with his drug dealer. So he was committing a crime in the middle of committing a crime, and when the police tried to stop him from committing the crime that he was committing in the middle of the other crime, he committed another crime. And this guy who committed... It's a fourth wall break
inside a fourth wall break. That's like 16 walls.
It's a fourth wall break inside a fourth wall break. It's like 16 crimes, which is not dissimilar to his actual record, which included huge violent assaults. It's not just that it turns out whenever you see one of these innocent, unarmed black men murdered for no reason by police, is that a lie? If there were any instances of that occurring, they would dominate the news cycle, and you would not hear about the George Floyds. Because if there were any instances at all of random, unarmed, innocent black men being gunned down by the police for no reason, then the George Floyds of the world would make those victims seem illegitimately victimized. But the truth is, those victims do not exist, or you wouldn't hear about the violent criminals like George Floyd and Jacob Blake and Ahmaud Arbery and
Rayshard
Brooks. Those victims don't exist. We did a show almost a year ago now where we were talking about the statistics, the actual statistics on it. You know, in a recent poll, they found that the majority of leftists believe that the number of unarmed black men killed per year is over 1,000, with about 20% of them actually saying that they believe 10,000 unarmed, innocent black men are killed by police every year. The actual number is about 10. In 2019, there were the numbers contested at somewhere between 12 and 20. We went through a list of 15 of those on this show. Only 4, right? And those are supposed to be the unarmed. In each of those cases of an unarmed black man being killed by police in 2019, the mitigating circumstances made it very clearly a clean shoot, with one exception. And in that one exception, the officer was fired, prosecuted, and incarcerated. But in the other 14 cases, there were, I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head, so forgive me if I flub it. It was either 3 or 4 that were actually unarmed, and those 3 or 4 still assaulted the police officer. And in most of those, it actually went as far as the officer tased them. They were effectively unaffected by the taser and continued to assault the officer. And that's when the fatal force was used. In the other cases, the claim of unarmed, there were 3 or 4 of them where the report said unarmed, but there was a firearm found on the scene. And in at least 2 of those cases, the firearm was at the scene just out of reach of the, quote, victim, only because he dropped it after he was shot. In 2 or 3 of those cases, the unarmed criminal was driving a car at a police officer when the officer shot through the windshield, right? Those are your unarmed victims. If you tell me that I've told this story on the show, I think when we did this conversation I'm talking about, I was training a bunch of Marines one time in combat convoy operations, and I asked, okay, if you're a driver, if you're going to be a driver when you deploy, put your hand up. And, roughly 1/4 of the Marines raised their hands. I said, okay, drivers, what is your primary weapon system? And one sharp little corporal stood up and he said, Sergeant, my primary weapon system is the M4, and I cut him off. And I said, no, shithead. Your primary weapon system is the 23-ton truck that you're about to be driving. When you are in combat convoy operations, you keep your hands on the steering wheel. That is your job. If a threat presents itself, you either trust to your battle buddies to do what they have to do, or you drive over it. Your truck wins that fist fight. It is your job to make it happen. When you start talking about a criminal driving a car at a police officer, that criminal is not unarmed. Ahmaud Arbery was not an unarmed victim. As soon as he put his hands on Travis McMichael's shotgun, he had armed himself. It was no longer Travis's gun. It was the gun, and whoever managed to get his finger on the trigger at that point was the winner. And my dad told me something really smart about the whole who's got the gun thing years and years ago. You cannot outdraw someone who has the drop on you. Ahmaud Arbery failed to learn that lesson. Or rather, he learned that lesson very, very effectively.
Yes, I was going to say, he learned the lesson. It's just the price of the lesson was kind of high.
Now, I'm giving Crowder a little free advertising this morning. You see me drinking out of my Mug Club cup. I have a Mug Club mug. I am a Mug Club member. I do watch Crowder. Amusingly, I don't often watch Crowder on Mug Club just because it's more. It just happens to be more convenient on YouTube most of the time. But I do support the work, and I do send them, and I do take my my military discount, but I pay them the annual. It's like $60 annually. And in fairness, that like the Mug Club membership, that's the whole Blaze catalog. So that's the Glenn Beck and Dave Rubin, Levin, all that, Michelle Malkin, that whole list. You won't often see me actually use the Mug Club mug. Usually guests end up grabbing this mug because it's a man-sized mug. It's not a Lowry-sized mug. So it's smaller than my regular coffee cup, but let's have 2 cups of coffee on air this morning. So
what's funny is that comment that we just made about Ahmaud Arbery learning the lesson, based on the standards that YouTube has now put forth, that could be an offense that gets us a hard strike and gets this video removed. Even though at no point in time have we ever said anything close to we're happy that Ahmaud Arbery died.
And it would be hilarious if we got a hard strike on this video, because it would actually be our second hard strike in the time period. We got hit on the Stacey Abrams video a couple weeks ago. If we do get a hard strike on this video, it will be funny to have gotten a hard strike and not be allowed to go live for 2 weeks because we were talking about Crowder getting an illegitimate hard strike and not being able to go live for 2 weeks.
Now wait a minute. That was the Stacey Abrams was a hard strike?
Yes, it was. If we get another one of those, we're off the air for 2 weeks. And a third one, the Brushfiremind ceases to exist on YouTube.
Huh. Why did they still let us post? I thought your first hard strike was a 1-week suspension.
No, it's it used to be like, okay, so when we did the election stream the night that Donald Trump was elected in 2016, I'm not making any claims about last year. YouTube, get your fucking thumb out of my ass. We got taken down on that one because we were sharing feeds. We were looking at different news channels, and when the president came out and gave his acceptance speech, we were watching it on Fox, while everybody else was watching it on Fox. And it didn't even occur to, like, I wasn't streaming Fox's feed. I was watching Fox on the TV over here that's not connected to the computer system. And it didn't even occur to me. They hit us with a copyright strike, and I actually got like 6 copyright strikes on that video. And when that happened, the rules were different then. They've changed since then a bit. When that happened, we weren't allowed to go live for like a month. Remember? And it was really obnoxious. I went in and I wrote a rebuttal. I wrote a counterclaim on each one of those strikes because I don't care who you are. You do not get to copyright the speech of the commander-in-chief. Sorry. No. That is absolutely public domain. That is public information. That is a public speech. That is speech that is owned by the taxpayer because it's speech from the president. At best, you could argue that he had not yet been inaugurated at that point, and so he personally has a claim on the speech. But even that is tenuous. Now, let's get back to the Crowder ban for a minute. I'm not sure if I can say I suspect. I hope that the way half-Asian lawyer Bill Richmond proceeds with this is that he files suit against YouTube for defamation. Because what YouTube has done by banning Crowder on this basis, let me pull up the article and read what YouTube said exactly. Okay, so according to YouTube, YouTube creators share their opinions on a wide range of different topics. However, there's a line between passionate debate and malicious harassment. Content containing targeted harassment including, but not limited to, stalking, threats, bullying, and intimidation is not allowed on YouTube. Bullshit. Stephen Colbert, now I forget the one that I was going to say for Colbert, but Bill Maher saying, I blame that stupid kid and his stupid smirk, and actively defaming and assaulting the reputation of the young man from the Covington Kids situation, Nick Sandman. That's still up. Crowder ran a video on his Twitter right here. We'll get to that in just a minute. That's all still up. We'll get to that in just a second. But YouTube emailed attorney Bill Richmond and specified what about the video violated their policy. Now, from this language, I don't know that YouTube took it upon themselves to email Bill Richmond, or if Bill emailed them and they responded. But YouTube says, in particular, this video violated the aspect of the policy that prohibits content reveling in or mocking the death or serious injury of an identifiable individual. Accordingly, the video has been removed and a strike has been applied to the Steven Crowder channel. This constitutes the second active strike, blah, 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 blah. So the Crowder story goes on to say, we did a little skipping through YouTube memory lane, though. Since YouTube says it doesn't like harassment of identifiable individuals, we thought we'd see if we could find other notable mentions on YouTube of hosts mocking identifiable individuals. Not public figures, just regular folks, since harassment can't be tolerated. And here's what we found. And they run this video. 2 of 3 guidelines.
I don't blame the kid, the smirking kid. I blame lead poisoning. And oh yeah, I blame that fucking kid. What a little smirk face. Smirk face says, really, I mean, I don't spend a lot of time, I must tell you, around Catholic school children. But I do not get what Catholic priests see in these kids.
Questions to ask me questions about Andy NGO to see if I was in support of what happened, and I was like, yeah, no, I talked about it on my show. So I made fun of him originally, and then I continued after I found more information out about him.
This is what I'm talking about. We need this in the freaking United States of America. Why do we not have protests like this? It's going to be brutal and violent or whatever. We need.
And this goes on for 2 minutes, almost 2.5 minutes, of example after example after example of leftists being allowed to just actively defame and harass and bully. Nope, YouTube doesn't care. There's something we need to take away from this. There's something to be learned from all this. It is not that YouTube is interested in protecting people from harassment and insult. No. It's that YouTube is invested in the narrative. YouTube is invested in the cause of the terrorist organization Black Lives Matter. And the cause of that organization, one of the many things that organization is looking for, is to get rid of police. Now, if you saw the reaction after the Ma'Khia Bryant incident, the leftists came out after the cop, screaming up and down, "Oh, you didn't have to shoot her. You didn't have to shoot her. Why didn't you go for your taser? Why didn't you drop the gun and pull the taser? Why didn't you shoot directly up into the air, firing a warning shot? Why didn't you just shoot the knife out of her hand?" I kid you not. Unironically, they're saying, why didn't you just shoot the knife out of her hand or shoot her in the leg? And we've relitigated that conversation over and over, not just with respect to this particular situation. Warning shots are bad. Bullets come back down. You cannot miss with a gun.
Yeah,
You can fail to hit the target you wanted to hit, but you're gonna hit something. You're gonna hit something. Now, the idea that you're gonna fire a 9mm pistol at someone's hand holding a weapon, forget that the shot's almost impossible to make. Let's say you make the shot. That round is going through that hand and into the person you were trying to defend by shooting the knife out of the hand, if you're dumb enough to try and take that shot. Now let's say you miss the hand. You didn't miss everything. You still hit something, and the thing that you hit is the girl that was about to be stabbed. Steve Rodemeyer says the other kid was the backstop at that moment. Absolutely. That kid would have taken that bullet. The only option available to that officer, he had to make one choice out of two. Stop the threat or allow the victim to die. Those were his choices.
So, going forward, not just because if they'll whack Crowder, they'll whack anybody.
Oh yeah.
I mean, let's be real. And then, ironically enough, when they're done with all the conservatives, then they'll go around to the lefties that aren't towing the line, and they'll play No True Scotsman with them. What was it? Stalin said something to the effect of the lefties get the bullet too. I forget the exact quote, but he was making the point that when you have people that are committed to the cause on the intellectual and philosophical level, well, they're dangerous, because as soon as you deviate from the plan, as it were, well, now they're going to criticize you, and you can't have criticism in the ranks. You just can't. Whereas our side encourages it. Chris and I had an argument last Friday because we had different interpretations, and that's perfectly acceptable for our side. But their side can't handle dissent. And their side can't handle dissent because they can't win the argument. They just can't. So, brother, where does this go? What do you think we do? What should we push for? Are the laws like the ones that DeSantis down in Florida is proposing? Is that the route to go? Because we've already seen with Parliament.
I think we're headed for a not so peaceful national divorce. It's not going to be that the country gets divided evenly in half and all the lefties go to the left coast and all the smart people go to the right coast. It's going to be, it's not even going to be state by state. We're going to see something akin to enclaves where, one large city decides to ban all its police and another one doesn't. Crime will spike in that city, and people will move out of that city and go to the one that has cops, and then the one that the good red city will then get plugged up with useless idiots, useless leftists, and it'll get paralyzed by the traffic problems. Mr. Doberman says, get to a red city. Forget that. Screw that. Hell with that. Get the hell away from every city. City is cancer. But what's going to happen, what they want for these criminally inclined minorities to be allowed to commit crimes with impunity, without consequence. They would actually prefer that Ma'Khia Bryant be allowed to murder the other girl, rather than a police officer enforce the law or protect the victim. They would rather have a jungle primary type of situation where the strongest, vilest, most corrupt and violent actors rise to the top. They would prefer that crime go unchallenged
No, but I guess I didn't ask my question the right way. I mean, I understand that they want division, but how do we fight back?
Oh, no. I'm sorry. You asked your question fine. We let them.
And in the meantime, we're pulled off the public square. Because that's what social media has become,
okay.
for better or worse.
I got you. Okay, I got you. I was saying we let them we let them abolish their police in their big cities and then kill each other off. Let them do that. No. We absolutely have to continue fighting for the public square. We have to continue fighting for the First Amendment. We have to continue fighting for the Second Amendment and the 10th Amendment and the Fifth and even the Third. Because eventually things get funny. That Third Amendment might actually matter again. The Third Amendment is the one that says that they can't bivouac troops. Dad says if we let crime go unchallenged, guess who was harmed most? Yep. And I'm tired of seeing tax money paid to try and help those people who will be harmed most by crime going unchallenged, because they are the same people who are voting for that harm. The unarmed, the peaceful, the Democrat, the gun grabbers, I would never have a gun in my house because it's not safe. You know, you're 10 times as likely to be killed with your own gun as you are to use it in self-defense. Bullshit. That's a lie. That's a lie that is debunked by evidence, and specifically it's debunked by investigative evidence from the CDC, who, let me tell you something, they really wanted to find it the other way. When you have an organization that's politically motivated or ideologically motivated to come to a particular conclusion, and their research comes inarguably to the opposite conclusion, the fact that they came to that conclusion, the fact that that entity came to that conclusion, is even more aggressively bolstering of the conclusion, because they wanted it to be the other way. Peterson points out a study as an example where the U.S. Army first experimented with intelligence quotient research and came to the conclusion during wartime, through their research that a person with an intelligence quotient below 85 cannot be trained to do anything without that person being absolutely counterproductive. They cannot be trained to do anything sufficiently to be a useful soldier, right? The Army came out with that at a time when, please believe, the Army would have preferred nothing more than to pay a pittance to unintelligent people to go and run into the machine gun fire, and discovered that there's actually a level at which people are too stupid to be worth sending into the machine gun fire, where they're counterproductive and cannot be made useful, and in fact are for that reason a detriment to the security and effectiveness of the rest of the force. The Army very much wanted to be able to increase the number of people in the ranks and continue to fight the war. But that's not the conclusion they came to. They had to admit, no, these people can't be used. We cannot train them.
Yeah, too much of a liability.
And good God,
funny,
I've worked with people I've worked with dummies who had to have had an IQ of at least 100, 110. And I mean, in that 90 to 110 range, I have a hard time recognizing people as being above the 85.
Well, the problem with that is it's not that the people of low intelligence can't be trained and can't not be trained to even do things effectively. It's because they have difficulty thinking outside the box. As soon as something wanders off the show map for that type of person, they're lost. They're a deer in the headlights and have no clue how to compensate. And it's sort of the same thing here. Crowder lives outside the box. I mean, sure, he follows the format of a comedic host.
Well, he doesn't live entirely outside the box. He's not gay. I'm sorry, that was awful.
Wow, that was not the joke I thought you were going to make right there, sir.
Sorry, Mom.
But anyhow, wow, okay. But that's what they don't want. They want us just smart enough and yet just stupid enough to continue to be, the next soldier or the next diesel mechanic or whatever.
My mother-in-law just said, wow. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. Now, Milo Yiannopoulos, he lives entirely outside the box.
Okay. But anyhow, Crowder and that and the public square. And, we're long, but I'm gonna try and point you back to it. The social media law that's going on in Florida, is that the answer, or is it a good first step? Or
it's a good first step. It's not a it's not a final solution. But it's a good first step. Oh, Mr. Doberman says Crowder loves them dresses. Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I don't look as good in drag as Crowder does. I've got the hair for it, but this kind of ruins everything.
But we're long. We're over.
Yeah, we are, and I'm starting to wander off into cruel, dark, and vulgar humor, so I should probably go ahead and put a cap on it right there. I hope everybody get a good chuckle out of my bad jokes. Thanks for watching this morning, guys. We love you, and with any luck, we'll be back tomorrow. With any luck. Y'all be safe out there. Bye-bye.